but it does go down to being likable and being willing to do the dirty work. Like sitting around and reading what Trotsky wrote down is great. I'm glad you feel good about yourself. But if you're not out there in your community, if you're not talking to your neighbors, I know you're not. Exactly. I know you guys aren't. I know you guys don't know the name of the people who live next door to you. You don't. We all talk about community and society, and no one knows who's on their street. Start there. So like to have a conversation with an actual human being, and then we can move on from there. That's how I see it.
No, you're absolutely right, man. There's so many. I mean, we're all guilty of that. Of not knowing who lives next door. As you were saying that, I was thinking about a comedian I heard one time that was talking about. He said, people will complain about who speaks the language. He said, well, he's like, you don't even know what your neighbor has to say. You don't. So we do. We have to start. And I saw someone say that we have to start local. We have to start with the small. And like that was a great point about always looking to the big fish. We have to look at everybody. We have to start small and build up. And because we used to be the side that resonated with the working class, and sadly we lost that to the grifters and the con men. And I sat back so many times and I tried to point out to people in my part of the world, hey, you're being used, you're being con, you're being grifted. But like we talked about when you was on my show, TJ, whether you love Donald Trump or hate him is irrelevant. He spoke a language that resonated with the dude on the loading dock. You know what I mean? And we could sit here all day long and say it was stupid and say we could call it everything that it truly is. But he was able to connect with those kind of people, and we have to figure out ways to connect to where they understand that we're not necessarily trying to make fun of them, or we're not trying to punch down at them, but we're trying to wake them up to what's actually going on around them and who's actually out to get them at the end of the day.
It is actually shocking how actually easy it is to get a lot of people to change their minds if they hear the right words in the right tone from the right person. And I always say with my content that I make, I don't think I'll convince anyone who watches my video that they are wrong. There's no way. And so the mindset that I have with the videos that I make is to give people the language, vocabulary, and logical structures they need to convince people in their own lives that they are wrong. Because that's where it's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of uncles that aren't invited to Thanksgiving dinner this year. But that is the exact opposite mindset of what it actually takes to win. And it sucks. I understand. It shouldn't have to fall on the people who are oppressed to explain to their oppressors why they shouldn't oppress them. It really fucking sucks. And I say this as someone who is not one of the oppressed. So like, if you are in danger talking to people about this because of who you are, great, don't do it. But for the rest of us who feel like we're not putting ourselves in danger and it just might give us a little social awkwardness, yeah, go out and have those conversations with your neighbor. It's the exact opposite of what the left in general has gone by for the past decade, where we've had this whole movement of, hey, we need to avoid platforming these voices. I remember when Donald Trump was taken off of Twitter, and I was like, this is a terrible fucking idea, because they're just going to pull themselves further into their own echo chambers where they're less and less exposed to our ideas. We saw this with the whole, and I don't think Kamala would have won if she went on Rogan, but I think that the philosophy that caused her to not go on Rogan, and again, this is an unverified report from like internal members, but people have leaked that the reason she didn't go on Rogan is because there were progressive members of her, her campaign that were like, oh, we don't want that to happen. We think Joe Rogan is bad. And we don't want that. That's going to piss off progressives. But first of all, everyone I fucking knew wanted her to go on Rogan. But I don't think they understand what progressives are in that context. But like, that's the problem. That is the thing that needs to be rooted out of the Democratic Party. We need to be showing up to these tables. We need to be talking to people. I think that in our minds, it's still 2010, and the media is just going, and by ours, I don't mean ours, I mean the Democratic establishment. The media is just going to get people to believe in the truth or whatever. And that's just not, we have to put in the work. Like, we've lost the upper hand when it comes to the communication networks. We can't just rely on doing good things and having that communicated to people. We need to put in the work to make people understand.
You're right, and I think when she didn't go on Rogan, I saw a video he made where the way he framed it, didn't make it look good and made it look worse to people, because he was like, "Well, I tried to get her on, I wanted her on, but she had these rules in place that she wanted these things said, or she wanted me to come to her, and she wanted all these people to be sitting around, and I just wanted to have." He said this. He said, "I just wanted to have a one-on-one conversation with her like a normal person." Now I think she would have did good on there. Honestly, like TJ said earlier, Joe Rogan voted for Bernie. So I think if she could have got her points across to him, I think she would have held her own and did great. I'm not saying that she couldn't have held her own or did good on the show, but by not going on, she gave them the ammunition to then say, well, we tried to sit down and talk with her like a normal person and she wouldn't do it. You know what I'm saying? So it was one of those things that I had mixed reactions about it. I was kind of worried in one way that Joe may purposely go out of his way to sabotage her. In one sense, I kind of did have that thought process, but by the same time, he goes whichever way the wind's blowing. If you really watch one show to the next, I've seen him have Bernie Sanders, then I've seen him have Andrew Yang, then I've seen him have Tim Pool, and he just goes wherever the guest is going. He really does. So I think that, and I'm not saying that her going on there would have won it for either, but I'm saying it definitely fed into their narrative of, we can't talk to these people.
Yeah, that's exactly what John and I said, that we're under no illusions that the election hinged on her going to Joe Rogan's show a week or two before the election. It didn't, but it was indicative of the mindset that had permeated. Which is weird. It's like, why didn't want to go on Joe Rogan because the progressives don't like Joe Rogan, but she went on Fox News. And that's what got me too, is that Joe Rogan is not an antagonistic interviewer. I'm having a hard time thinking of an example of Joe Rogan just turning the screws on some lefty, because he's had him on the show. I can't think of it. I have seen him do it, but I have seen him do it against like Steven Crowder or Candace Owens. Like I've seen, or Dave Rubin, saying that regulations are necessary so builders don't have houses with power lines next to water lines. Like he roasted Dave Rubin and that stuff. And once again, Joe Rogan is not some wild-eyed lefty or anything. So I think that she could have done herself a favor doing something like that. But you had mentioned how the media sphere has circled around this, and that'll pivot to our next topic. But real quick, Tennessee Brando, you've only been a couple of times, so I'm not sure if you know this, but we have this thing in the show every now and then. We just pick out a random comment, and so I'm just gonna shot in the dark, pick out a comment. It's like, I love TJ's shirt. What are the odds? Holy shit, that is crazy.
That was the random comment.
Listen. Like, this is our tradition. We pick a random comment, and they said they love the shirt, so I appreciate it. ARG Productions. This is a band called Death. If you guys haven't watched the documentary, go out and do that.